And welcome to the noon NBA slate preview for today, March 8th. Um, so, let me give you, first of all, kind of a summary of what's going to happen today. We'll do this live. Then I might actually come on for a to do either NHL or early MMA looks today. Because tomorrow I might be a little bit busy. And then at 6 o'clock we have, and 6 o'clock we're going to be doing live before lock, where Bobby's going to be there with me. We'll talk about NBA. We'll talk about NHL, and then what I'm really excited about is that on about 11 o'clock we're going to do the live sweat. And the live sweat is one of my favorite things to do. Now, again, in a perfect world, we'll have something that I'm deep in, or Bobby or somebody else. But it's kind of interesting to take a look at the lobbies and see who's doing well and see what's required to win certain types of tournaments and have a lot of fun with it. So we're going to be doing that at 11. It's going to be subject to one bit of variance, in that I got my second shingle shot today. Now, for those of you that are old enough to know what that is, shingles is kind of like the new version of chickenpox, sort of. That when you get to be my age, most people kind of get vaccinated for that. And the first shot is like, maybe pretty tired or whatever. And the second shot's supposedly going to be worse. So we'll see what happens. But the plan is to be there at 11 o'clock tonight. All right. So feel free to go ahead and ask questions in there. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look at the slate. Then we'll take a look at my sheets, and then we will we'll try to build some lineups, both by hand and using SaberSim. So right now we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 7-game slate, and the way it's structured right now, the second to last game, Oklahoma City Phoenix, is going to be the one that really determines, who wins, because this is where pretty much all the chalk and all the value is coming from, at least at this early stage. And we'll get into that when we get into it. You're still getting probably some value out of the Portland game, but they have kind of competition issues. I mean, they're going to be a big 10-point underdog. Cleveland, Miami, I would imagine, is going to be very low scoring, fantasy sludge like usual. So we'll have to take a look at that. And I guess we'll just get started. What I want to do is I want to pull up my sheets here, and I don't like to go game by game. I like to kind of do an overall slate breakdown and slate look. We kind of remember what the games are. Well, I guess we'll get back to them if we have to. So we'll take a look at all the different sites. We'll take a look at DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo as well, and see kind of what it looks like. Now, again, what we're looking at here is kind of like my projections / aggregation of industry projections / just overall how many fantasy points these guys are rating to get as a median. Okay. And we can rate them either by point per dollar, or what I have is called the Sheets value score, which is kind of a different type of formula that takes into account both upside, raw points, and value. And I kind of like this. And it's what I use for all the sports, honestly. And I have early projected ownership kind of here on the right. So the first thing I'd like to do is I want to rank these guys. Now, how do you rank the players? What I like to do is rank them two ways. One is by Sheets value score, and two is by points per dollar. And what we're looking for, and we're just trying to find good plays right now. We'll figure out how to construct and how to stack and things like that maybe a little later on in the video. But for now, let's just figure out how to figure out good plays. Now, again, what I'm not going to be talking about, for those of you who haven't seen me before, I'm not going to be talking about the games. I'm not going to be talking about, like why these guys project so well. It's just kind of useless to me. I mean, listen, it's fun and it makes for content. for me to say, oh, Jokic is a really, really good player and he has a good matchup and all this stuff, and that's why he's a good play. I just like to rely on the projections because the projections kind of take all that into consideration, and then we'll put our own little twist on top of the projections to see what kind of upside we can get from that, or how much risk is involved in it. So anyway, so when we rate the guys by Sheets value score, here's something that you need to know is that the Sheets value score metric really does favor the high-priced guys. It really, rewards players that are just going to score a lot of fantasy points. It does take into account value, but it's more weighted towards the high salaried guys. So what I like to do to get an idea of what the slate's going to look like and what good plays are is to see when you rate them by Sheets value score, what guys in this top range are kind of lower salaries. So because if you can get a lower salary player to crack into this top 10, for example, it's probably a really, really strong play. So the guys that kind of stand out this is early, whatever, but this whole idea is process, right? I mean, we're going to do this now, and we're going to do this at 6:00 when the projections update. But it's a good idea to figure out how to do this. So the first guy I notice is Josh Giddey. Okay, I mean, and you'll kind of get a sense for how to do this, doing this process more than once. But if you're 7,600 and you're in this top range here, that's one of the stronger plays you can have. Then you have Brandon Ingram, Trae Young, and both these guys kind of stand out as being on the cheaper side, yet being up here. And then I guess Vooch would be my next one I would kind of highlight. But overall, I mean, with the exception of Giddey, there's no real, winner as far as that type of analysis. So what you're looking at here are basically the top plays being Jokic, Doncic, Tatum, and Lillard, and Giddey's kind of cracking in there. So before we look at, say, point per dollar, what I'm suggesting is that it's probably a slate that if there are good point per dollar plays, that you are going to want to play something from this top range. Maybe not two. That's kind of tough to do, but maybe you'll probably want to play one, because there's really nobody else that's really cracking into this range that's that great. So what we do next is we resort by point per dollar and see what the value kind of looks like. And as I kind of suggested earlier, a majority of the value is going to come from the Oklahoma City side. Now, right now, the issue, not that the issue is, the value is not great. It's definitely the best value there is, but at this current juncture, you have Aaron Wiggins at about 6.5x, which is fine. I mean, but at 3,500, and for something to be, say, 35% owned, like it looks like he's going to be, you really want more like 7x for a guy at this salary. So it's not as if any one of these guys are that great. But the thing is that with all of these guys out for Oklahoma City, with Shea out and the other guy out, the other Jalen Williams, I guess, out, the usage just has to go somewhere, and someone has to get there. But the thing is that we don't exactly know which one it is. That's why there's nobody that's really projecting through the roof like 7x, 8x. So it's kind of hard to explain, but the combination of these Oklahoma City guys, I know that somebody is going to smash just because of the way the math works. I just don't know exactly who it's going to be. Okay. And that's why when you look at this, you don't see anybody that jumps out that you have to play. But I promise you that of this whole group of guys, and we can include Saric in here as well, between Saric, Wiggins, Joe, and this Jalen Williams, there's probably going to be two of them that probably smash. And I just don't know exactly who it's going to be. And the projections aren't even speculating as to who it's going to be. But what it's probably leading you to do is to if you're playing multiple lineups, just kind of shuffle them. and just hope you get the right combination. That's probably the deal. And the other thing you might consider is that, is maybe playing like 2 or 3 of them, just to kind of cover your bases here. The other thing, I guess, is to just go with the lowest owned, because none of these guys are that much better than the other. So if you can get a good ownership, let's just say that Dieng is really kind of coming at 15% compared to, say, 35 for Wiggins or something like that, then maybe just take the ownership discount if you have to only pick one. But I think that the idea is that you want to pick a couple of them. And what this is getting me, which is what I'm getting at here, is that if you are going to pick a couple of them, whether it be Wiggins, Jalen Williams, Wiggins, Joe, Jalen Williams, or whatever it is, you're not spending too much money regardless. So you're going to be able to get to those big spend ups pretty easily on this slate. Okay. So when you go back to the original rankings here, like Jokic, Luka, Tatum, and honestly, there's no difference between any of them. Like, and Lillard too. I mean, I don't understand why he's 3%. Because they're playing Boston, right? The matchup's a little worse. So Jokic, Luka, and Tatum rate to be the 3 best plays, and they're all owned about the same. So there's really no difference between all 3. So you could probably play, one of these with, say, Giddey, with, say, 2 other OKCs, and just be kind of on your way. There was one other guy that I wanted to look at. Actually, we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Let's go back to point per dollar for a second and see what else rates well up here. So what you're trying to do here in the points per dollar is kind of the inverse of how you analyze the Sheets value score. What you're supposed to do is find the more expensive guys that make it to the top of this analysis, because point per dollar ratings or rankings usually favor the cheaper players, the lower salary players, the ones that really aren't going to score as many fantasy points, but they're going to have good value scores as far as points per dollar are concerned. So what you're looking to do is find expensive guys, or the most expensive guys, that can make it up here. Okay, so first guy I will notice is Christian Wood. He kind of pokes his head up in here, 4,900. You have Cam Reddish, 4,700. And then you get back to the aforementioned Josh Giddey. So Giddey, Reddish, Wood, like, these are the guys that are going to, make the screens as far as, this type of analysis goes. So when you go into making your hand-built lineups, if you just kind of want to pick good players, that's what you want to do. It's just really pick good players. So why don't we do that, and then we will talk about a little bit of like stacking and lineup construction for a second. So let's just see, like, all these guys that we mentioned, how they would fit in here. So let's put in Giddey, put him at shooting guard. Let's put in we'll put Giddey in at shooting guard. We'll put in who are our favorites? Let's just pick 2. We'll pick want to pick Isaiah Joe? No, let's pick we'll pick Jay Williams. Let's just go to the top rated guys. Who was that? It was that's Yahoo. Sorry about this. So it's Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. So let's put those guys in. So go Giddey, Wiggins here. We'll put Giddey in the point guard positions. This way we can get Isaiah Joe in the shooting guard position. So we'll take those 3 as the OKCs. And now let's pick some of these other players that we just looked at. So let's just put in, say, well, before we do that, probably want to pick a stud, but let's put other plays in here first. So we'll put Christian Wood in. Um, who are the other guys that kind of we identified? Let me go back to this. My brain's a little bit not the way it used to be. Reddish, that's probably a good play. Was there anybody that we identified by points per dollar? Excuse me, by value score again? Yeah, so we were talking about maybe a Trey Young play or an Ingram. Get back to that in a second, but let's put in Reddish for now. We can put him in as a guard. It doesn't make a difference for now. So what you can do is you can now just kind of pick what type of pick a stud of some kind. So just for no reason, we'll pick Tatum. So when you do that, what are you left with? You could probably get another stud in here because you only spent 10-3 and you played all this value. So you can probably go ahead and actually play another one. I don't know if you can get all the way to Luka, for example. It's PGA, sorry. But I mean, it's close. You could get to. Let me just rate him again. Like if you played Jokic, for example, can't quite make that work. I mean, almost though. You can almost make that work. If you pay down just a little bit more, like you play Jalen Williams instead of Isaiah Joe, for example, then you could save, and then you could get there. But then again, Jalen Williams is going to be a center, right? Let's just kind of fiddle around with that and see what that looks like. He is just a center. He's only 3,700. You're only saving 700. Then you find another 3,700. So it gets a little uncomfortable to try to play the two studs. But what you could do, and this kind of leads us into lineup construction a little bit, is I have another guy for you, which we're going to, and here's this. It's going to be a weird suggestion, but before I do that, let's see what Trey Young would look like. Because here's the other guy that I mentioned. So if you play Trey Young, then you're easy, right? Now you can. There's got to be a 5,800 guy out there that you can play. So you can play Tatum and definitely one of these mid-range guys. But the other guy that you could probably play, and you'll hear me out here, is you could play Durant. Now, he does not project as well as some of these other guys, I have to tell you. Whereas he's listed all the way down here, but he's only 12% owned, and I think the reason why is because they say he's on a minutes limit. But you'll forgive me, but when I look at this, they say he's on a minutes limit, and all the guy does is play minutes. So I don't know what to tell you. And the other thing that makes him a good play, and this is kind of buried the lead here, is that he kind of makes all this OKC stuff work. Right? I mean, you can go ahead and play all kinds of OKCs and use Durant as your run back, and now you might be in business. Now the thing is, listen, you're dealing with a situation where this could all blow up in your face, right? Because Phoenix could be up by 25 points in the third quarter, and Durant doesn't see the fourth, and then he busts pretty much. Now, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, it's possible that he does well in spite of the blowout, or maybe caused it. So that's possible. The other thing I would suggest, though, is that if you're going to play Durant, maybe what Durant does correlate well with is Giddey, because Giddey's going to be in there in the competitive games. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with Isaiah Joe, and Wiggins. But I'll tell you who else would be in the game if it were competitive. And again, Saric could have replaced Wiggins in any of these builds, by the way, or the other guy, or Ousmane Dieng. I mean, that could have worked too. But the point is that I think Dort is probably going to be in the competitive games as well. So if you are going to do this, maybe it's not a bad idea to play Durant with Dort as well and eat a little bit of salary that way. Um, um, and the other guy, I want to listen. I may as well go check and see what his projection is. He didn't really show up as a great play at first. Would be Devin Booker, and Devin Booker works too. I mean, he's only 9,500, and you could play that in some lineups as well. So you could make, you could make one build with OKC running it back with Durant. You could make another one with OKC running it back with Booker. And then as you'll see, by the way, you have a little kind of funny correlation with Reddish and Tatum, sort of, from that game. So that game kind of works. Or, if you didn't want to do that and you wanted to correlate a little differently, you play Lillard with Tatum. And now what you're going to have to do is kind of like reassess the OKC guys. In other words, now you're going to really have to save the money. So you could play Dieng at power forward and then maybe move down one of these other guys to, I don't know, Trey Mann, Lindsey Water, something like that. So there are ways there are things you could do. I mean, hell, you could not play Isaiah Joe and then go to Saric, and you could probably shuffle these players to make that happen. I don't know exactly how quite yet, but can you play Tatum as a guard still? I forgot, for example. Oh, it's spinning on me. So that's one way that you could attack this slate. Is you could find. I think that Portland Boston game, and it's funny, both those games they do carry risk because they both have, they're both really really high spreads. But if you get what you want, you know what I mean. Like if you get what you get the game script that you want, you could be in kind of good shape over there. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to go to SaberSim, and let's take an early build with SaberSim. What we're going to do is we're going to do the by the way, feel free to pop in questions whenever you want into the chat. So we're going to upload my projections to SaberSim here, and we're going to build like a bunch of lineups with the customized projections. Okay, so we built 50 lineups, and we're getting the guys that we thought we'd be getting. Wiggins, Giddey, Joe, Reddish, Tatum, a little more Saric, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Did get to some Durant. We got Vooch in there, maybe 20% McCollum. So nothing particularly earth-shattering. But if you wanted to use SaberSim to do this, one thing you can do is you could make kind of value judgments here, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at 3,900. I think I would much rather just use that money for an additional OKC guy. Yeah, Clay. There's literally no reason at all. I mean, I can do that too. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. As I said, it doesn't really matter what was I going to say? Which stud I put in. But the only difference is that they're also more expensive. Right? Like if you put Luka in that build, then it becomes very, very difficult to fit everybody in. To save that money to go from Luka to say Durant or even to Tatum made a big deal. But that's the thing. We're just kind of experimenting with it, right? So let's do it again. Just to do it. So we'll do it again. We'll start again. We'll go with Giddey. We'll go with Isaiah Joe, the same guys before, right? We'll go to Wiggins. We'll put Isaiah Joe. Actually, we'll put. Remember, we put Giddy over here for a reason, so that we could fit in Isaiah Joe, jam him into the shooting guard. And let's go back. We use Christian Wood as the example again, but we don't have to use Christian Wood, right? So, like you said, like if you played Jokic, and I mean, just for fun, let's see if we could get all of this. So, if you played Luka, you could probably do this. But then you're really playing, Davis Caldwell Pope, and then you're also really limited with what you do here. Like you could play Dieng, and then you could play. Now you got 4 OKCs. It just becomes a little tricky. But just to kind of screw around, if I went back to the Christian Wood, and Wood, you don't probably want to play with Luka, so you probably would want to play Wood with Jokic. So you play Wood with Jokic. Then it depends on which mid-range guy you add with this. Now you probably can't play Durant as your second stud. Actually, you could. So again, it depends on how much you spend on these guys, I suppose. This was Dieng instead of the other guy that we had in the earlier build. So yeah, you could use Jokic, but I'm kind of a sucker for the Durant play or Booker because it runs back with all this stuff. But actually, I'm already playing Durant. So, yeah, sure. Jokic, Durant, or Tatum. Oh, I know what we did because we played Tatum we used, as an example, we used Reddish, I think. But, but that's not the greatest, correlation in the world, right? I mean, Tatum and Reddish. Like, Tatum could have a good game without Reddish having one, and Reddish could have a good game without Tatum having one. It's not like Reddish runs the show over there in Portland, for example. But what I was going to say back in the SaberSim bill is that, again, if you do play multiple lineups and you do this, you could kind of screw around a little bit. Like if you don't like Davis Caldwell Pope, you could just X him. I mean, you just really could. And I think that on a slate like this, it's not the worst idea in the world because, as I mentioned, if you X out Davis Caldwell Pope, then you'll get more combinations of those OKC guys. And I really think that this slate requires you to get that right combination. So the more opportunities to get that right combination, the better. So that's something you could do. I mean, you see this 3,900. He's like right battling with all these other guys. So we just go boom and X him out. Then you just get a lot more combinations of all this other stuff. You get more Dieng, for example. You even get more Dort, for example. So the other thing I would say is that I'm getting you're seeing a couple lineups with like Bradley Beal in them. You're getting some lineups with Trae Young. I think that in those lineups, I would prefer to play them together. Play Trae with Bradley Beal than play them individually. But I gotta tell you, it is pretty tempting. Trae Young at 8,800 here, to give him a shot. All right, let's go to FanDuel. Let's see what that looks like, and we'll do the exact same process, and then we'll build as well. It just looks a little bit different, and it's much more positional based. But let's just see what it looks like. We'll do the same thing. We're rating them by value score, and here you see that there's quite a jump between Luka and Jokic down to the next guys. So it would be nice if we got to play one of those. That's the one thing. It's so funny. Like I don't know how delayed I am with the chat. So it's so funny. I just started. It's so funny that I just started like showing how to build the hand build with FanDuel with sheets. With FanDuel, and as I'm doing that, I see Clay come in and say, "Will you show us how to hand build using your sheets for FanDuel?" So I think that's probably it's funny. It's like try to trailing me by like 15 seconds. It's so funny. So same process. Now we're going to go back into points per dollar, and you see that Joe is rated number 1. But now what you're getting is interesting on FanDuel, and this is what I love to see. I love to see the difference between DraftKings and FanDuel. Is I see that you're getting Josh Okogie as a top play on FanDuel. And obviously, you see 50% ownership. Can't get away with anything in this world, can you? And the other guy you're getting of actually both sides is Matisse Thybulle. Although that's where I kind of like probably put my value judgments into this a little bit, is that Thybulle is just a low usage guy, and while he's going to project pretty well on a point per dollar basis, he doesn't really have that type of ceiling. The other thing that kind of stands out here is that Valanciunas looks like a really strong play over here, as opposed to, I don't even think he showed up anymore at all on DraftKings. So from a player perspective, the differences are Okogie and Valanciunas, and most of the rest are pretty much the same. Like you want to play Luka or Jokic. Excuse me. And then they priced Giddey up, which is, hey, that's pretty funny. They priced Giddey up. They gave Giddey a more expensive price. And we just have to just go position by position and build one. So you know what? Let's do that. Let's pull up. We'll build by hand, same as before, and then we will use SaberSim build as well. Yesterday, you see, I have a decent balance. Yesterday, I cashed in the monster over there. So let's see what we can do. Okay. Lobby. Oh, I like the 150, right? The jumbo dunk. So we're going to enter a new lineup. So we have to really go almost position by position once we get the guys we want in. So I think we want to play either Luka or Jokic. Now, we have to pick one. One thing I would say is that Jokic is lower owned. And the reason why is because, among other things, he doesn't have the same positional mobility. So you can pick one or the other. Before I pick it, I want to see what I'm kind of giving up here. You're probably not going to be able to play two studs. Ingram at small forward, he doesn't really affect who I pick with Luka or Jokic. As a matter of fact, I mean, the closest thing I have to a good center play is all the way down here is Bam. Unless, I want to go back and play, who did I mention? Valanciunas. Okay. So if I can make a good center play with Valanciunas, maybe I should do that. Because I could still play Okogie and then play Luka. So why don't we try that? We could play Luka at the point guard. So let's just start. We'll go Luka at point guard. And what's cool about it is, as I just mentioned, we're doing this because we can play Valanciunas. And this is pretty good correlation here, right? And then we can go back and play Okogie. Play him at shooting guard if we want, or you could play him at small forward. It doesn't really matter for now. And now you got $6,183 left. So it's probably going to end up being the same types of guys, but let's just start piling away. We're not going to play Thybulle, but what we can do is we can get a decent stack going here by playing Ingram. You play Ingram and Valanciunas with Luka. That could be interesting. So let's do that just for fun. We play him, we're going to be okay. We're still 57.60 a man. We still got plenty. Now let's start putting in some plays. So we have again Isaiah Joe, point guard. Who else do we want to try? We could play Dort in this build. We don't really have anybody running back with Phoenix, right? Let's take a look here. Sheets value score. Ingram. Giddey is actually fine over here, and I don't think people are going to play him. I'll tell you who else looks pretty good over here is Van Vliet. So this brings up an interesting question: is if we're going to be playing Giddey so much on DraftKings, should that impact how much or how little we play him on FanDuel? And I talked about this with Bobby when I first started learning how to play. I was asking him, when you quote your exposures, do you quote them like completely all over your portfolio, or do you just do it site by site? Because for me, I mean, I would want to know how much money I have invested in players across all the sites. And if I have all this money on Giddy, do I want to just like double count him and put more of him on FanDuel, even though he looks like a good play? I think actually the answer is you're supposed to play Giddy on FanDuel because it looks like a worse play, and I guess technically it is. So I think that his ownership, though, is probably going to be lower than this because people are thinking the way I'm thinking. They're thinking, okay, if I want my exposure over there, I'll just go ahead and play him on DraftKings. So I think the guys that are going to make you a little different over here are maybe Giddy, but this Van Vliet play is very, very interesting because I think he's going to get ignored somewhat. I mean, it's like one of those games, like it's the late night game, and I don't know. So why don't we use Van Vliet? So now we're kind of struggling because we got 51.50 a player, but I think that we have enough. The problem is that Isaiah Joe. This is what we can do. We could put. This is why Luka's such a good play. We could play Luka here. And then we could play Isaiah Joe in the point guard position. And now we're back in business, right? Now we have 5,400. So what do we have here? We've got one value from OKC, a little run back sort of with Phoenix. We got two New Orleanses with Luka, and we have Van Vliet. So if we really wanted to make this pretty, what we would find is a little more OKC or Phoenix, probably OKC. And if we can find another New Orleans or another Dallas, that would be fun. But I don't like playing multiple guys with Dallas. Multiple guys with Dallas if I can avoid it. How is Christian Wood rated over here on FanDuel? Let's just take. I didn't really run into him at all. I can't even find him. Christian Wood is kind of bad over here because of his price, so he's not going to fit. But let's see, who else do we have? Back to the Steibel idea. So we could try Reddish, Horford, who ain't nobody playing. I don't think. That would be just obscene to play that. That'd be so dumb. It just might work. This Steibel play, it's always just it's so tempting because he's cheap. He's playing 40 minutes. He might play 40 minutes. I just think I'm more inclined to maybe. First of all, let's play Dort, okay? Before I forget, because we're not playing Ingram. I don't think in this build. I think that's actually pretty sharp. Actually, if you don't play Ingram, if you don't play Giddy to play Dort, now we have 5,000 left per man, and I think we can do this, right? Well, if Reddish somehow a power forward? No, Reddish is not a power forward. I think Ingram could be no. Ingram's just a small forward. This is getting a little annoying. So we're kind of shy some power forwards. This is a struggle. Let's see. Well, Siakam's too expensive. Ooh, man, Horford is a freaking power forward. Wow. If we play Horford at power forward, then we need another one. Oh, we could play this dude. We could play this OKC guy at 3,900 at power forward. So let's see what that looks like. Hey, Dieng at power forward, and then you have 6,100 left, and you can go play an atrocious looking Al Horford. Or you can play any of these guys, or at power forward. Hold on, let's find him. So who's 6,100 that we looked at? Avdia. You could play Christian Wood, but we already have Luka. But you just play some random, just impossible to get there Al Horford play. And just rock the house. I don't know if this is the way it's actually going to show up. Remember, because all these projections are going to change. But that's if the slate were in 10 minutes, this is probably what I would fire. Let's take a look at what Saberson would do for FanDuel. We'll upload this. Upload FanDuel. And one of these days I'll go back to Yahoo. Just running out of time. I mean, I still put up the sheets for it, but so let's do a full 150 max just for kicks. So if we built just straight Saber Sim with 150s, you'd be getting almost 100% Isaiah Joe and pretty damn close with a Kogi. And look at this, all the Al Horford. How do you like them apples? They really like this play. Thibault, again, that's going to be that's going to be the struggle. It is. He's going to show up as a good play. He's going to fit lineups, and you just have to figure out if you can live without him, because it's a guy you probably want to live without, but he's just so cheap, and for the minutes, getting a guy like that cheap is very, very tempting. But again, if you want, go ahead, just go exit. That's fine too. X him out, then again you get more combinations of Saric and Dort and Giddey and Isaiah Joe and all that stuff. So you're really only rooting against one guy. You're just going to root against that. I guess that should do it. At 6 o'clock, we're going to be live, and Bobby's going to be joining me, and the slate's probably going to look entirely different. But I mean, hopefully I make sense when I say what I'm trying to accomplish here. This is trying to teach you guys how to have a process, and if the slate were in 10 minutes, this would be what I would do. So I'm probably going to do the exact same thing a little later, but unfortunately, I like doing it, but I also am going to be live, so I'm going to have to be talking and all that stuff. But that's why I like to do my lineup builds live with you guys, because I'm selfish. I want to help, and I want to make money myself. So I'm going to try to do this again a little bit later. The other announcement for those of you who didn't catch this is 11 o'clock tonight. We're going to do a live sweat where we go over everything that's going on, and it dovetails personally with perfectly with the context and construct of the slate, because all this OKC stuff is going to be just coming in. You know what I mean? Like be just into the fourth quarter of the OKC game, just as I go live at 11. And again, hopefully I don't pass out from my shingles shot by then. But if not, I will be there. If no other questions,